hype.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to RLAfterShock, the show that is now the longest-running weekly episodic podcast that is dedicated to the Rocket League esports scene, specifically the Rocket League esports scene for the European region. I'm the Eternal J. Joining me, as he always does every single week, is Digital Bacon. Little fun weekend that we've had, of course, on our hands with a LAN and a LAN qualifier and plenty of news to discuss, Bacon. Are you feeling as tired as I am from getting no sleep last night?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I've been up since like 7 o'clock this morning as well, so it's absolutely crazy. But it's been a long weekend of Rocket League, and it was an awkward one. So I completely said it on to the rival guys, with Re1, I got absolutely blue balled because I had to broadcast it, so I didn't get a commentator, and then I was quite disappointed with my commentating with the NA side of Dreamhack, just because
oh mate,
it was just a bad day at the office. You get that all the time, don't you?
Nah, man, I slept with commentating both EU and NA this weekend. I just fucking couldn't do anything. I was so fucking shit, man. And days like that really get to me because I was so pissed off. TCS rolled around and I was like, I'm pretty confident this is going to go horribly. And it did at the beginning. I mean, towards the end of it, we had a nice, good matchup. But yeah, no, I've just been shit for the past few days, and I've not done the fucking Rocket League scene justice, which is, it feels bad, man. You do get those kind of days, but mate, it's so fucking frustrating. It's
We're always
so
our harshest critics. That is pretty much it, because we know we can do better.
I mean,
TCS
you say
was brilliant, because that was you're out of the slump now, because once you actually get a cast going right and you're getting that hype, it generally leads to better stuff down the line because you've broken it.
I mean, you say that, but I've also got the Starlight Minor qualifiers coming up in just a couple of days' time, and that's going to be 12-hour shifts, 4 best-of-3s in a row, late nights, early mornings, fucking just go, 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 all guns blazing, no stopping, nothing of that sort of fashion. It's all Counter-Strike work, but just, I'm imagining some hell to pay will be coming in the next couple of weeks' time as we get set up for those minor qualifiers. But of course, not it's all CSGO, not Rocket League related, of course. Ooh. There's a dog.
Jay.
There's a dog. Oh, you're gonna have to sort this out. I might just leave this in the podcast. Well, coming up on today's show, we do have our news segment, obviously, with plenty of news results, a little bit of drama, some esports items and esports organizations. We've got some mailbag questions, 2 new mailbag questions finally coming through from our lovely audience. And we're talking about the Dreamhack closed qualifiers for the Pro Circuit Valencia and for the Sogeti Esports series. Let's do the news to begin this off. We'll start with a story from Triple Trouble. Ronaky venting his frustrations, I guess you could say, with getting an esports organization. Obviously, we know the Triple Trouble are a completely self-sufficient, self-made brand. They haven't, they've been part of the Red Reserve roster, Red Reserve organization in the past, back when that was still a fucking thing. But ever since they left, they've been Triple Trouble. They've been unable to secure organization backing, even despite making it to LAN. They recently released a brand new jersey. The Triple Trouble merchandise stuff, and when that tweet went out, Doomsy had to insert himself into the situation and say, "Sweet jersey, but why aren't organizations throwing themselves at you?" Which Ronaky had to responded. Apparently, we need to win LAN to even be considered. Now, I'm not sure how much of an exaggeration this is from Ronaky, because we have seen situations where obviously there's a lot of organization teams still left in the scene at the moment, and most of them aren't even winning LANs. A lot of them aren't even getting the chance to go to LANs in the RLRS, for example. You've got Veloce was signed up, they're signed up with that X-Secret side. So I'm not sure how much of this is an exaggeration or how much of it is the truth. And if it is the case that it is the truth, then wow, fucking organizations have a massive, massive expectation to their players.
Yeah, definitely. You saw this in the follow-up tweet from Pondex saying you're making it sound like it's hard, which of course it is, but it's the whole difference of, for the pay that, is expected for a top-end RLCS team, it's not really worth it for these new orgs coming in, even with the esports items there, and it's just because of the inflated scene with Rocket League. If there was tournaments going on every week, we're talking like CSGO levels or that sort of stuff, then that'd be absolutely fine. But here in Rocket League, very few orgs want to pay that amount, to which, of course, some players, they're not going to want, say, half the wage of teams they're beating, so they're not going to go for those deals. It's a case of a bit like the current TSM side of waiting around until you got the results and then you become favourable for one of the bigger orgs to sign you. It's a very much yikes situation at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it is a yikes. I mean, especially when you consider the idea that the European teams are beating out the North American teams, and the NA fucking salaries are inflated beyond belief. Like, I've seen the numbers, man. Yeah. They are something else compared to what EU salaries are like. And it's like, these guys want to ask for this money. The organizations in Europe don't want to pay it because they don't get as much representation as North America. I mean, there is a business element behind it, which is it kind of does, you know, it's very frustrating for European teams because we have the best in the world, right? I mean, you know, we've just seen them, you know, two teams that have just absolutely dominating across the entire season and over the last couple of qualifiers. And then meanwhile, you've got a team like Triple Trouble who are pulling in just behind those guys, and they are ready to take a title. They may even just take the LAN itself when it comes to the RLCS finals coming up in a few weeks' time. You know, like that's not even out of the realm of possibility. But the idea that they have to win the LAN itself to get an organization, to get organizational backing, it feels like a very heavy expectation to put on the Rocket League scene, which isn't quite as developed to say, hey, you need to win LAN. It's like, well, I mean, you can't fund yourself to go to the LAN if you're Triple Trouble because you haven't made it into the Dreamhacks. You can't, you know, go through the qualifiers because all the other teams are competing in those. You know, all the best teams in the world are competing in those, I should say. You know, all the big squads from like Ronaky, Vitality, and FCB are all competing. You know, and you know, PSG, for example, who do have organization backing, they can go through those qualifiers and they can compete. And if they get knocked out, they can buy their way to LAN. Triple Trouble don't have that luxury. They don't have that opportunity available to them. And it does feel like like, you know, the things are stacked against the likes of Ronaky. Now, I will say that for Triple Trouble themselves, obviously, like there is a business element behind it. You know, for organizations in NA, they could potentially justify that extra exposure or that extra salary because of the exposure that it will give to them. Because obviously, NA is back to fuck. You know, there are tons of NA lands, and obviously, NA has the studio over there. NA has, you know, essentially it's the home turf of Rocket League because of the Psyonix is based there. So for NA organizations, it can come up to it can be worth it to inflate those salaries beyond belief, but that of course means that it further affects EU that don't have those marketing advantages, and therefore we're left in this situation, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And the only bright side I can some ways, looking at behind the curtains essentially of what's coming up with the potential with what's been talked about of some more football clubs getting involved. We've already seen the Spanish guys do, but we're talking about from the rest of Europe. The problem there is with big football clubs, let's just take a random name out the pool, like a Man U, a Chelsea, a Bayern Munich. They're going to want to be the best because they are in their respective regions. So for them to pick up a football team that's second best or third, that's very hard there as well. You know, it was essentially like why Barcelona took so long to pick up what is quite a good roster there. Same with PSG. When they picked up the front side guys, they picked up what at the time was one of the best in the world. Here, Triple Trouble have got to pull out a big LAN performance. We're talking probably top 4. Otherwise, they could still be for like a good while in a backseat position where they're waiting for a great result to finally bag an org. And that is proper worrying.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't many results going around at the moment. You know, there aren't many major LAN events. Like, we haven't had a LAN since like Leipzig at this stage. Like, fuck, you know, there's been nothing. You know, RLCS has been great, but that's all online tournaments, and there's not been a trophy being handed out for those, you know, things. I mean, we had a good stretch of LANs at the beginning, but so far, you know, WSOE and Dreamhack have been it. You know, there's only been 2 LAN events, 2 major championships for Rocket League.
Well, let's talk about that as well, because the reason why they can't, why it's LAN performance that matters to these teams is because that's the players in their jerseys. That's them showing off your Logitech, Microsoft, AMD, Intel, whatever, on the jerseys, which is the marketing, and that's what those sponsors are paying for. If you're playing in an online tournament, yeah, you've got the name of Renault, Vitality, or Barcelona on that, but it's actually not showing the guys that are paying for those teams, essentially the sponsors. And so that's why online performance doesn't really bag you a team, it's the LAN performance.
Yeah, and again, there aren't many lands going around right now, and I'm hoping that the Epic buyout will sort of support that and give us a bit more, a few more events to work towards. And obviously, the DreamHack Pro Circuit was 4 lands for the year, but we're still waiting on the second of those lands to come up. Obviously, Dallas is coming up in the next week, so we've got an opportunity, obviously, to see how that's going to go. But for the interim, obviously, there's just been very, very few opportunities for the likes of Triple Trouble to sign, and that is again sort of like a comment on the top-heavy nature of Rocket League right now. Again, I'm hoping this changes with Epic, because Epic Games certainly have the potential.
Face it.
That too
could
as
lead
well.
Down to a proper good, say again, just using CS as an example, because that system is pretty good of how to get to the finals there. I'm really hoping that transfers over so that we get 2 Face It tournaments a year, which it's all stacking together different avenues for lands, which is really quite cool. And that will be what makes Rocket League grow into a tier 1 esports, because we're still not there yet.
I'm hoping for the same thing as well, but there have been situations where tournament organizers have been turned off by the prospect of the license they have to obtain with Rocket League, which is another thing right there. Those community guidelines, I keep bringing them up. I think they're awful now with the way that things have been limited for organizations to get involved. There have been projects that have been, thought of and theorized and dreamed up by some tournament organizers that want to target the lower levels of the scene, that don't want to go directly to the RLCS. And these guys are not allowed to do it because of the cost, the money sink that it will be for the return of investment that they will not get back. And then the other organizations at the top, they can't schedule their own tournaments because usually Psyonix have a very tight sort of stranglehold on that. And we're in the situation where, again, we've had only 2 lands this year. Leipzig, WSOE, we've got DreamHack coming up for the 3rd, and we've got a guaranteed 2 more DreamHacks, so 5 in total. I have not heard anything about Northern Arena. I have not heard anything about E-League. I've not heard anything about the Universal Open, and there is potential for the likes of Face It to get involved and do more things, but for the time being, how can teams like Triple Trouble show up and turn things, spin it in a positive light, so yeah, we made it to the World Championship land. Okay, what other lands have you made it to? Sweet fuck all, guys. That's it. That's all you've got. You've got the World Championship behind your belt, and and I feel like that this is limiting our sort of opportunities to rank these teams as well, because we don't see a lot of crossover between regions. We don't see a lot of online performance, which historically and traditionally in esports, it's known that it's usually it's presented that LAN events and the LAN and LANs themselves are the pinnacle of the scene. They are the pinnacle of the esport. That's where the big boys come to play. That's where the trophies are handed out. So obviously it holds a lot more prestige behind them, to the point where I'd argue that something like a DreamHack would be something like a DreamHack would be more prestigious than an RLCS League play, for example.
I would completely agree to that, actually, yeah. DreamHack, for me, the weight of it with our current climate is pretty much as powerful as actually winning RLCS, I would argue. The money's not there, of course, it's not the exact same, but the whole prestige, because these teams are performing at their best at both of them. You've got the top and the same level of teams because it's the exact same guys, so they near enough equate evenly. The difference would be later on down the line when you have, say, I don't know, $50,000 lands, prize pool lands, in comparing it to, say, DreamHack and that, and then the big teams might not, go along to it because they don't feel it's worth their time, as an example, then that becomes not as valuable. But here, where you've got the same teams going to both, they equate at the same level. Now, as a sponsor, as a org looking at it, do you still weigh it? Probably not, because you're looking straight at the prize pool, because that is just the easy budget for prestige. It's just easy looking at, okay, $1 million RLCS or 100,000 Leipzig. Which one are you going to think is better? When really it's the exact same competition.
Yeah, and I feel like obviously that we need to see a bit more. I just want more. I just want more out of Rocket League. We lack in content, we lack in tournaments, and I just want to see more. And I want to see other guys get involved. I want to see a Face It LAN. I'd love to have the concept. I'd love to have the idea of like a pro LAN circuit essentially, which is kind of what DreamHack are kind of do. But if there's only 4 events over the course of 12 months, that's like an event every one event every 2 months or so. Not even even that, like, even less than that, maybe once every 3 months.
Well, it's well less than that because the first one was March, and then we're going now for the second one coming up, Dallas, which is May. Sorry, no, that's even the start of June. Then we've got July, and then it's the last one going on in September. So it's it's over one course of a half year because they know the second half you're expecting your E-League to come back. And I am hoping Face It will be putting on a tournament of their own during that period as well, a wind-up period. But my biggest problem at the moment with Dreamhack, which I'm hoping they're going to change it for the second season, is this auto invited status for the RLCS teams, where if it's an open circuit, you should not be having that. For the first season, I don't mind it so much because it's just getting the class in there, getting viewership, getting people to notice it. But going forward, if the health of Rocket League improves, they won't need that, and it actually helps with the whole integrity and competition of the circuit.
Well, I kind of want to also talk about the qualifiers for Dreamhack as well, because while I do like the idea of the open qualifier circuit, it's giving a paid ticket to the LAN event, I don't think it's like being taken advantage of by the teams that need it the most. Again, going back to Triple Trouble, they don't have the opportunities to, they don't have the opportunity, they don't have the chance to, win out the. Also, they don't have the opportunity to buy their way into the LAN. Obviously, it's an open sign-up thing. But they also don't have the chance to, win out the open qualifiers because who's winning those? Who's entering those? The top 2 teams in Europe is who? It's fucking, FC Barcelona and Reina Vitality who won this weekend's, qualifier. Obviously, spoilers for those of you who will be looking forward to our preview, our roundup of the tournament itself. But these are the top 2 teams in Europe that are coming through for an open qualifier and by extension a closed qualifier as well. And Triple Trouble, obviously, now they're going to lose out their chance because they did not make it into that top 2 spot. There's only a handful of spots on offer. I think that honestly, that system needs to be revised as well because there could be so much potential for big sort of and again, there's teams in the top level of Rocket League that are not organised who don't get the opportunity to go to these lands. We need to see Triple Trouble at these events. They're fucking making the world finals. They're top 4 in Europe right now, and they're not going to get that chance to flaunt that and show it off on what could be the most stacked tournament circuit of the entire fucking scene.
Yeah, and again, that to me is that. A little spoiler for Vitality and Barcelona would say to get spots. Both those 2 teams would have got tickets essentially through just going to the LAN itself.
I mean, there's a good chance anyway that they'll win out of Dallas and go forward and win that whole thing, and get through based off the invite of that. It's basically a secure dealio right there,
Which I don't mind that way of securing the next spot at all, where essentially you win at Dallas, so you're invited to the next one. That, to me, is absolutely fine. But it is here where these open sign-ups are for the ones without orgs, essentially, or the orgs that don't have the money. I'm looking at, say, Vloche as an example where they're a good org, they're paying their players, but they don't necessarily have the money to be flying them out to America often, And so here, again, with the bricks as well, when we're looking at RLCS, it should be a case of RLCS teams with orgs aren't allowed to participate, or if they are, they've got to do it through the open bracket with everyone else so that it then comes a time investment issue, because we even saw it back in the Dallas qualifiers where Vitality just did not show up because they couldn't be bothered. They had got the spot through RLCS then, so... And they were pretty much secure top 2, so they just did not show up. And again, that's poor form. That's bad for the image there. Just send everyone to the open qualifiers, because then you also get upset stories of in the open qualifiers, some of these big RLCS teams getting knocked down by these bubble teams, and that really hypes up the whole competition.
I mean, we can talk about semantics a little bit later on when we talk about the Dreamhack the Dreamhack bracket in our tournament roundup at the very end of the show. So let's just keep it on Triple Trouble for now. I think we're kind of discussed and exhausted that whole concept. Yep. I do want to talk about the Faze thing, though. Obviously, there was this deleted tweet from Ronaky, teasing the idea of a Faze up. It's this hashtag Faze up, and Garen RL on Twitter caught this and put it on blast immediately, because of course he fucking would. Because considering that Ronaky literally just a couple days prior was complaining about the struggles of getting an organization. A bit curious that suddenly out of nowhere they get Faze Clan knocking on their door. Of course, this was followed up later discussion on Reddit after the whole Faze versus Tfue thing. He kicked up in the Fortnite scene. I don't really give a fuck about that. But this was a thing that came up on the subreddit literally just a few minutes before we started recording this show. Basically they're talking about like if Triple Trouble are going to get involved in that Faze drama, and essentially someone on the who was it? John, aka Always, on Reddit said, "Oh, the Triple Trouble Faze thing was a joke." Which, thank Christ for that. At least we get to know exactly what's going on rather than getting all the having to start speculating on fucking rumours, which does beg the question, why did Ronaky tweet about this? But that's another question that we can ask another day, I think.
Yeah, definitely, like we said earlier, it's a difficult thing. Faze Up was just, as he explained, a little bit of a inside joke between them for him to say, you get it all the time. A little tweet, like just simple Faze Up. When we were talking about, like, literally 2 minutes before it went live, we questioned, like, oh, was he just watching, I don't know, League of Legends and Faze as a team there, Dota, is he just supporting one of those other games? COD, I think Ronaky is quite interested in as well, if I've seen anything before. And no, it just didn't line up, and it was just a joke. You get that all the time. Just because a player tweets Faze Up or V for victory, don't mean they're joining that team.
Yeah, I mean, it just sucks that he threw the whole Rocket League scene into complete fucking disarray, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, Faze are joining," and then
that would be epic. I will say.
I mean, I have my own reservations about Faze at this stage, considering that their current like financial situation isn't amazing. But we can talk about that in a whole other podcast. So let's just move on to our second piece of news. Bluey has intentionally, inadvertently, I'm not really sure, confirmed, FC Barcelona esports items for the esports shop for next season, apparently. There's this screenshot went up on the subreddit from a Twitch chat. Rebrand TV asks Bluey, "Yo, are you guys getting stuff in the esports store?" Bluey responded with "soon." This doesn't confirm it, but it certainly gives the idea that, yeah, FC Barcelona are going to be getting esports items, which, by the way, thank fucking Christ. But where are my PSG items, boys? Come on. What is
Jay,
this
they're already
bullshit?
in the game.
No, they're not. They're through Backcase mod. It doesn't count.
Well, that's because it's still the game file. It was just it's not been unlocked to everyone to be able to grab.
That's the thing.
Essentially, it's all coming down to legal problems with football teams.
I'm not gonna mod the fucking game to get an esport item which I should be able to buy, right? That's not what it's about, right? Again, it's the same thing as that whole statistical of, oh, you'll be able to buy all the esport shop items eventually if you watch the shop 24/7. Like, fuck off with that. I don't care, mate. What the bottom line is that I can't buy the esports items. I can't support PSG. Therefore, why should I bother modding the game in? I'm not going to do that because I'm not that desperate for the items. And the main reason why I want the items is to support the teams. And do you know what? Like, again, there's a part of me that's happy that FCB have got it, but again, I want to know why the fuck PSG aren't involved in that. Because we have heard on Twitter, especially from the PSG lot, that they have been in the PSG offices and they have seen designs and theorized sort of like, concept art about the esports items that they want to get. This information is in the public domain. This is known to the Rocket League scene. So come on, Psyonix, where is it? You've got FCB locked down. What's up with PSG?
Well, for me, it's got to be some sort of legal disagreement. Contract, it could be some sort of share between the two orgs that wasn't agreed upon. Who knows? But there should be a second wave because you've got to think we've got Space Station Gaming over in the NA side now as well, so they should be joining on in. So a couple of more orgs will be making their way through, and I'd imagine that would be once. There'll be a big wave once we know which teams are joining from the RLRS, if any, move up. Like, Complexity could be an easy org to grab items for because people love them. Same with Veloce, actually. And then over in the American side, they've got 2 unsigned NA teams, but they could get picked up once they make up to RLCS. So I'd imagine around about, I'm going to say August time, could be when we get the next org shop item update, whatever.
Possibly. I think that org items should be updated by the point we hit the next season, or the second season that its implementation will be involved.
Beforehand.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that the update also includes some of the other fixes against the fucking store, which we've all had a problem with since day one. So, you know, yeah, we'll talk about that in more details when, of course, that store does get launched. For now, though, FCB... I mean, I don't want to say it's confirmed because it's not 100%. It's not like a statement's come out and they said, oh, hey, we're doing esports items. It's like, no,
there's discussions going on.
It's discussions, and the idea that Bluey would confirm it does not seem too far out of the realm of possibility. I'm happy to hear this is coming. I'm happy to hear the idea that it might happen. Yeah, let's move on from that to our drama segments. I'm gonna call this someone at drama alert at this stage because, you know, it feels like it's such a drama alert moment, this fucking story. So... as we all know, Aztral was playing this weekend for Method. He was brought in alongside he was brought in alongside Rix Ronde and Burrito to compete in that qualifier. And after he went out, he tweeted out this: 145 pings is pretty good. GGs to all the teams we played, and see you in Dallas, which implies obviously that Method are going to be going to Dallas. Obviously they've signed up openly, so yeah, that makes a massive amount of sense. Mm-hmm. And Tylacto, love the guy. He fired back. He fired back saying, quote, honestly thought your net must be quite good considering how fast you managed to delete this tweet after tweeting it. He put a quick screenshot up there of Aztral saying, I guess I wasn't the problem, which implies some sort of dispute between Tylacto and Aztral in the Aeriality camp. Obviously, we'll know that Aeriality competed in the last qualifier for Dallas and had an insane run. We were talking about Aztral, how great he was. We all thought that Method were picking up Aztral because of his performance as a result of that, but apparently it looks like there's a bit more to this story than we initially thought. So I want to, before we move into the second part of this, I want to just talk about that in its isolation. Do we have any insights as to what's going on? Maybe what prompted this move from Aztral to go to Method?
Well, I mean, I don't know what is going on with the Aeriality lot, of course, but the move over to Method makes absolute sense to me. Is a player that's looking to get into a secure RLRS spot. He's absolutely nuts as a player as it is. We've seen that he's finally worked out in the mental game. And yeah, can't really say anything more. Just this seems to be like a little bit of banter between them as such, and it's just looking a little bit toxic from the outside.
I mean, you say that, but at the same time, you know, there is also this follow-up tweet, which definitely doesn't, you know, hint to banter. I mean, Tylacto, feel free to come out and correct us at this. I mean, it doesn't feel like this is like banter to me. It feels like this is pretty decently charged. Maybe I'm missing some of the sarcasm because this is all text, and obviously I can't see, you know, any of the the inflection in a voice that would obviously be, you know, included with sarcasm and banter. And certainly I can't see any inflection in this with Aztral. He put a quote to respond to this tweet, which got blown the fuck up, by the way. This is fantastic. XD, so you are actually thinking that I was serious, ? I lost a bet and needed to tweet that and delete it after 10 seconds, but I know that you are not going to trust me, but I don't care. Think what you want, which again implies a bit more that there's some conflict between Aztral and Tylacto. Well, that's the first thing. The second thing is this reeks of bullshit. You didn't make a bet to tweet this and delete it 10 seconds in. You tweeted it, realized it was a bad idea, and hoped to God that no one would have seen it. I've done it before. Everyone on Twitter's done it before. You know, like fucking... Come on, mate. Don't try and... You know, I've been alive long enough to smell bullshit when I can smell it.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, a lot of people have said that he's a little bit of a... he's got a shit personality, to be quite blunt. I think that's even posted somewhere down the thread. But it's essentially a case of... You get players that don't work well together. I mean, that's what happens when you're... you know, working with a bunch of 16-year-olds, essentially. They're all little shitters.
Is Aztral 16? Hold on, let me verify this.
Oh, no, he's young. I'm sorry if he turns out to be 17 or 18. I don't know the age of Aztral. I don't go...
Aztral is actually 16, yeah, December 26th, 2002, so... Wow. I mean, fair play.
That was a bloody good guess, and I was being just generalising the whole shit, but it works and it's true. That is Rocket League.
Well played, mate.
We're 24 years old and feeling fucking old. That is
yeah, tell me about it. Holy shit. 1996 versus 2002. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, what are we doing in Rocket League? And everyone's too young. that has some horrible implications as well. I took a look through the responses, and they are about as far down as they go. You know, everyone from Burrito B to Ginger Triss to Trox to Petrick, everybody who has any relevance in the scene. Petrick actually posted a really, really good meme, by the way. It's fantastic. This is. This kind of does, like, again, hints at the idea that Aztral has got some personality problems, or some sort of conflict between him and Tylacto caused this fallout. Bilbo, for example, certainly made that known when he quoted his tweet about fixing his personality. It is pretty contentious, obviously, with the way that things are working with Aztral at the moment. I feel like this is something went down in the reality camp that forced Aztral to move on and Tylacto to chase up new teammates, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And if you're going from aeriality to method, like, for me, at the moment,
it's an upgrade, obviously.
Well, at the moment, aeriality have just been going strength to strength, you know, and it's just that difference of method have that secure spot into next season. So getting chumming with them, do not blame him at all. And since Rick's Ronda and Brie have been playing at Aztral, I mean, we watched it the weekend from the qualifiers. They were playing better than with Oslon, and I don't want to put any blame on Oslon because, as we said it, he wasn't the one at fault in that lineup. It was Rick's Ronda and Burrito B sort of with a lack of trust in him, and there were so many double commits. But here, if they trust Aztral and they were essentially allowing Aztral to play as he wanted, it looked so good, and this could be a team. This could actually be sort of like the revitalization of Method, which is badly needed, considering we did not think they would be staying up in RLRS this season.
Nah, I'm gonna like disagree on that front. I still think there are problems with the Method side. I mean, we're gonna talk about this in more detail when it comes to.
I'm not saying Method
breakdown.
are going to become RLCS tier. I'm just saying they'll be a much more solid RLRS. Like, they scraped by the skin of their teeth to stay up this season, and that ain't what we expect from those lads, you know.
We'll talk about this in more detail when we come to break down the Dreamhack Valencia closed qualifiers. For now, though, that's the story about Tylacto and Aztral. We're going to move on now to our mailbag segment. It's been a while since we've done a mailbag segment, Bacon. Oh, my God. I almost forgot it was a segment we did on the show. Obviously, if you do want to get involved in the show, you can send us a mailbag question via the Discord. The links are in the show notes and the video description of every audio and video version of the podcast right now. You can click that, you can get taken to our Discord, and you can take part in the discussions that we have there on the occasion. A little community of about 40, 50 people. And you also can ask us a mailbag question via the mailbag channel via that Discord. We have two today from two brand new faces, two recent joiners to the Discord, actually. We've got Tyz Rugels and Remedy asking questions today. Kind of linked into each other, so we'll start with the first to go to the second. Tyz Rugels begins with, based on the recent amount of bubble teams and RLRS teams that are beating RLCS teams and making deep runs in recent qualifiers, do you think that top-level teams are becoming too complacent? This is a conversation that you already had on Twitter with, I believe it was Jayski, about the the way that like RLCS teams treat some of these open qualifiers and closed qualifiers. So I want you to expand on your conversation first before we get into my opinions on the whole thing.
Well, and essentially, again, I'm going to take Remedies. They're going to take the follow-on as well, because this goes into my point quite nicely as well, with Remedy saying, as an extension to the above question, do you think teams should be taking qualifiers seriously, even if their org can afford covering the expenses to send them to LAN? Does it hurt the Rocket League scene when teams don't take the qualifiers seriously? And for me, yes, it hurts, because I'm all about competitive integrity, Jay. Like, I'm pretty sure you're the exact same of...
Yeah.
If a team is playing in a tournament, they should be playing their best. If you're not playing your best, you're not representing yourself as a player or your org, your team at the best. Now, for me, that really annoys me when you've got teams, and it's even worse over on the NA side of things, to be honest, where they just turn up and they're doing, these dream hacks, for example, but they're not putting their whole effort into it. Like, I can remember it was a couple of weeks ago, NRG winning it out because they're good enough, but they're all on like 3 hours of sleep. They've been up since like 6 o'clock that morning doing whatever the shit teenagers do at 6 a.m. in the morning. And then they're just playing in the tournament and they're not even talking. They were streaming it and just making a joke out of the whole situation. You're just there like, you're not repping your brand well. You should always be respectful of your opponents. It's just good sportsmanship, you know? And here, if you're not going to be putting your full effort into a tournament, get your sub in. Get them a bit of, comp experience because you might need them later on down the line. Like we said, if Face It are going to be bringing in their system, like you could expect a whole full sort of like behind the scenes league going on with Face It or something, you're probably going to want a sub on board if you're going to have to be playing a few nights a week or at least every week, because some players can't commit all that amount of time. Life comes into effect. So you need to start getting your sub into training so that even on the counter point to it, if you don't show up in Dreamhack, you can say as an excuse, oh, we're playing with our sub. Do you expect us to win when we've got this, a new player joining us for this period? He's not going to get the Turbo Pulsar result and win us a LAN, is he? Like, that's the only way you can legit have an excuse and lose out in Dreamhack. Otherwise, it's just making it look like bubble teams are better than RLCS teams. Circa RLCS this gone weekend and from the Dallas qualifiers, where they just seem to be slapping some of the RLCS teams and making them look bad.
Yeah, I mean, complacency was always this one thing that kind of always plagued the likes of the RLCS guys. Obviously we've talked about Champion's Curse. That was the big thing, the big scary demon in 2017. Everyone was like, oh, flip side, got the championship. Now they just can't win jack shit, and everything like that. Which, again, it's always been a problem that RLCS teams have had. And I think that's only been amplified with the with the Dreamhack Pro Circuit qualifiers. Because, as you say, like these teams are going to be going to LAN anyway. They're going to be, we're going to be seeing the organizations pay for their teams to get out there because it is a major LAN event. It's one of the only LAN events we've got in Rocket League as a whole that's not a BYOC Open or fucking, what's it, Dreamhack, Dreamhack Open sign-up thing. Not like the Open the Pro Circuit, but the, those tournaments that they get listed on Liquipedia occasionally, which just has like complete no-names playing
instead of being Dreamhack Valencia, it's Dreamhack Madrid or something like that. And it's just a standard BYOC of maybe at most 5,000 euros. Not even that, because of course they're probably not allowed by Cyanix ruling, but it's a case a bit like what we've done with Epic Land, Jay, where if there are players, they'll up the prize pool quite often, like with Epic Land. I think the one that's coming up in a few weeks' time is a £700 base, and that just means four teams have to sign up. If they get 32 teams at Epic Land, it then jumps all the way up to like a £2,500 tournament because they've got both Astra and Logitech sponsoring it, and that's how they do it, because it's all about, more players sign up, we'll give you more money to it because you're repping our brand, getting it out to them and all of that. And yeah, I can understand on that basis. Dignitas, your Renault Vitality aren't going to play on that because it's not worth their time. But on the big ones, yes, they're going to be trying to play at their full effort, because if they don't, it's bad for their brand image. And I imagine their orgs are probably getting pissed off.
Yeah, and again, it's frustrating because when these qualifiers have all the RLCS teams and all the RLRS teams involved, and the teams that are playing aren't taking it seriously, because they're like, oh, we can win, it's fine if we don't win, we'll go to the LAN anyway. It's like it's a very shitty attitude to have. If you're gonna have that attitude, don't bother competing and just buy your ticket. Just buy your fucking thing and go there anyway. Obviously the organizations want to be able to save the money, so they'll ask them to do that. But it's really, really fucking frustrating. At that point, just don't even bother inviting those teams. Just give that chance to Triple Trouble. Give Triple Trouble the opportunity to make their way in, because they are the ones that need it the most. They are one of the best teams in the world, but they're not going to have that chance to go to the LANs because they haven't got the funding and backing. They're just the four guys. Ronaky, Tadpole, Casio, example, and fucking Base.
Big example for that was, I can remember after Rewind running the Neon Dream, we got a message from Casio saying, oh, when are we getting paid for the Renegade Cup from Neon Dream? Because Method, of course, won that one, and he needed the money so he could join Triple Trouble at Dreamhack Leipzig, go through the open sign-ups. And that we rushed his money out to him as quick as we could so that he could pay himself out of his own winnings to get to that LAN, because all the Triple Trouble guys had to pay themselves to get there. And that is more what it is. That is true sportsmanship. And he probably actually didn't come out with any money that weekend, because you've got to get to the top 8 to get money from Dreamhack, and I don't think Triple Trouble did. So they probably ended up losing money from that weekend. But it's just that pure drive from those lads shows they are well worth picking up, and that other teams, other big RLCS teams and players don't have that same drive. That is what has got this standout season from Triple Trouble, is the pure willpower, the passion to win and get to that top level.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's frustrating because, like, if teams, those guys obviously work their asses off to get those opportunities. You know, I mean, that you can't take that away from them. If they're paying their way to land to get to a pro circuit, then yeah, like, you can't take it away, because they fucking really want to compete, and they know that they can compete potentially at the top level at that stage. But, you know, when they have these opportunities snatched away from them to go to these lands, like, I know that Triple Trouble can't justify going to Dallas. They might not be able to justify going to Valencia. You know, they probably won't be able to justify going to Montreal later on down the road. So, you know, those open qualifiers, they are like fucking life and death for them, you know, and for other teams, you know, if they're not going to show that.
I could see them get to Valencia, just because, again, that's an EU side of thing. But Montreal, like you said, is unless they get an org or they get money from Dreamhack, or if the RLCS money is paid out by that point, so that they can pay again themselves to go out there, because you got to think that's like a good, I'm just going to say a random number, but I would imagine somewhere around about 5 to 6 grand like cost to go out to LAN, and you've got to make top 10 just to be able to pay that off.
Yeah, and again, I just find it disrespectful. You know, I just find it really disrespectful to those teams, because they work their asses off. They've grinded to get where they are, and the people that are already up there, it's like, oh, it's casual, it's fine. It's like, okay, take that seriously in a tournament where you are up against no-name shitters from the bubble scene. All right, do it then. Don't do it in the open qualifier or the closed qualifier, where every RLCS team is in attendance. Every RLCS team has their chance. I mean, at this stage, you probably should be inviting all the fucking RLCS teams if you're Dreamhack. Just like give the teams that already made it to RLCS land the fucking pass. Like, okay, you guys made it. Now, you know, you're going to the Dallas, right? Everybody else has to qualify. You know, everybody else, you know, everybody again who has an organization, you don't have to qualify. You're going to land anyway. So fucking just, you know, here's your invite. You know, Triple Trouble. You know, you're not gonna you'll be able to qualify. You'll be able to have your chance or anything like that. And it's very fucking frustrating. Anyway. Does it hurt the Rocket League scene? Absolutely, it fucking does. Because, you know, like, these are the teams at the bubble level, the teams at the RLRS level that don't get these opportunities. You know, they obviously are not going to have a good time in those qualifiers when you have a team with such, you know, the teams with such high caliber sort of talent, the teams with such, with such an advantage over them, and you know, they're not going to take it seriously. Therefore, you know, they're going to be playing a weird style. They're going to be taking it casually. You know, you might be able to get close as well, which really hits your mentality. And like, we're so close to beating, you know, Renault Vitality at some stages, but then at the same time, you're kind of not, because they weren't taking it as seriously as you were. So it gives you false hope, and eventually, in the long term, that will damage, you know, the confidence of a player, and that will, you know, that will wreck their career potentially, because they thought they were close when really they had a long way to go. And then, you know, 6 months down the road, it's like, I was here, now I'm not, and then, well, that's it. That's it for me. I'm done. You know, and that is a real mentality, by the way. You know, I've seen it from fucking, you know, Counter-Strike players who've been burnt out so fucking hard, especially in the UK scene, where we were on the precipice of finally breaking through before we got set back massively by a certain few business dealings with the Elite Series. And then that just destroyed the entire scene. Like, all the old pros, all the guys with talent, all the guys with potential just said, fuck this, I'm out. And they're just up and left Counter-Strike entirely. And this happens a lot in Rocket League, you know, like the amount of people that came out and said, I'm done with competitive Rocket League, I'm retiring from competitive video games, because they couldn't make it through these qualifiers, and because they weren't being taken seriously by the pros, you know. It's incredibly disrespectful and damaging to the scene. It's something that will hurt Rocket League.
I think we just need to move on, because I've got a proper feels bad man moment going on, where feeling a little bit sad. So I think we should get into results, and definitely the first tournament we'll be talking about, Jay. It feels good to see these guys succeed.
Yes, we'll be talking about Sogeti Esports as part of our tournament roundup, but of course I do want to, before we get onto that, thank Ty's, Vogels and Remedy for your questions on the mailbag segment for the show. Again, if you want to get involved in the show, then you can send us a mailbag via the Discord links that are in the show notes and video descriptions of every podcast. Join, have a chat, and in the mailbag channel, send us your questions and we will answer them live, or not live in the case of the last few episodes on air. I do want to get the live streams going though, however, I'm going to start, and we're actually going to make some moves on that. I'm going to start contacting our staff again and getting some shit set up, because we need to have live shows again, Bacon. Our channel's been dead for the past three fucking months. Right, let's talk about Sogeti here. So, for those of you who don't know about Sogeti Esports Series, it was a tournament that went down over the weekend during the Dreamhack closed qualifiers. It was
it's actually during the open ones on Saturday.
Oh, was it the open ones? Oh, my mistake. Yep. Excuse me. But it was an event in Paris as part of the Sogeti. Was it a convention or something like that? I think it was yeah, I think it's just called Sogeti. But the bottom line is that it's a convention. It was an event going on. It was a Rocket League tournament that happened alongside a Smash series.
Yeah, it was in Paris, and it was some part of Expo. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was in Paris. It had 4 teams competing in it. We Don't Bim Bam, Dutch Bim Bam, Nordavind, and Crazy Crew all had to go through open qualifiers, separate open qualifiers to get there. And they were all seeded into a bracket very similar to the TCS LAN event we covered a while back. You know, best of 7s in the semi-finals and finals, and a best of 5 to decide a third place winner. So the way that went down was obviously the Nordavind side made it to the finals above Dutch Bim Bam 4-3. We Don't Bim Bam made it above Crazy Crew 4-1. In the third place matchup, Dutch Bim Bam beat Crazy Crew in a simple 3-0 sweep. And then the big fucking result was the grand finals, where Nordavind got reverse swept by We Don't Bim Bam 4-3 in the fucking finals, like the 5th time that's ever happened in Rocket League history or something like that. And obviously, I'm going to start with Nordavind because, like, fuck, man. Fuck, this team. Like, this team has just been on a downward spiral. They didn't qualify for RLRS. We were wondering what they were doing in that time. We haven't seen a Gfinity Elite Series. And the talent they have on this side, like, this was atrocious. This was atrocious from Nordavind.
Oh, I don't know, because I'm looking at, again, they're going up against bubble scene players here. Dutch Bim Bam being the old MCon lot, Crazy Crew forming together purely for the ESL, Espana Masters, whatever, and then We Don't Bim Bam, Breezy, Virtuoso, and Calix pretty much just forming up for this for a bit of fun, it seems. So Nordavind should have been a win here, and they just couldn't do it. Nordavind, for me, it's great that they're staying together. The org is still supporting these players, but I do not know. They just do not have it in them, it seems, still, to be able to push that next level. This should have been a win here for them to be put back on the map.
Easily.
It didn't.
Easily, it should have been a victory for them. And this roster is just a complete fucking mess right now, you know? Like, I like Data as a guy, you know, I think he's all right. I didn't think he was a good fit for Aldente and Godsmiller back when they were the duo. And now that Godsmiller's gone, Sebadam obviously has taken his place, and it's just not worked for Nordavind. It just fucking has not. And this is an organization team, a team that has a lot of backing, you know. They made it, the biggest result that they've had ever since they brought in Sebadam was getting second at the Frag League qualifier and losing to Triple Trouble. Like, that's been it. You know, that's been fucking it. You know, they've not done anything. They've not done fucking anything since that point. This result is just another big strike against Nordavind. And yeah, it is against a pretty good team, but they're a good bubble scene team. You know, they're a team that have not had any experience, with the exception of Breezy, in the Gfinity Elite Series or the RLRS or the RLCS. And that's really fucking concerning for Nordavind.
I mean, Calix is there in the RLRS. He's been a staple, but he is still that level of this is a team which on paper should have been able to take it over them.
Yeah, low-level RLRS for Calix. Excuse me, that was my big mistake there. But, you know, other than that, though, this was a mixed team. This is a mixed team they lost to. Nordavind should be a formation side. If they're going to go back into the Elite Series, these are my picks to go to the bottom of the fucking table. Like, Jesus Christ. I've got no more faith in this roster anymore, you know. They had a level of consistency last time around in the Elite Series where they, you know, had some sort of, like, opportunity to make it into the top 6, and obviously they did do that, but they have been unable to go higher, and since then they've been on a downward trend. They've been on a downward trend ever since they signed with fucking, you know, Nordavind, you know. They've been on a downward trend ever since they got rid of McLovin. You know, they haven't found a player to replace him, and obviously Godsmiller's gone, so the formation of this team has been broken up entirely. and they did have potential to beat We Don't Bim Bam, but then they choked and shit the bed, and then We Don't Bim Bam turned it on, and they just destroyed their opponents in that grand final. And again, best of 7 reverse sweep. Like, come on, man, what is going on here?
It's proper damning, essentially, that these teams... CJ could have been so much better than, like, with the class. The bubble scene here, again, I'm super surprised that we saw this work out the way it did, but I'm trying to essentially come up with any positives, and that, for me, is just looking at the We Don't Bim Bam side, who have two real star up-and-coming players in both Breezy and Virtuoso. Virtuoso probably getting overlooked quite a lot, but he's been on a great run. I'm trying to remember the lads he was playing with just before.
We Not Fit was the roster,
We Not Fit, that was it. And he could really come through with some new players as long as he gets there, but he's one that maybe by next RLRS running will be ripe for an RLRS pickup. The same with Breezy, actually. I expect to see him in next season, a lot like all the guys from Reality, essentially, like Bluey Leaks, so Aztral, who should probably stay on Method, we'd imagine, unless he gets into another personality problem and is dropped from that roster. But there's so many teams coming through now, and it's just these new young talents, near enough getting coached by an old guard like Calyx on that We Don't Bim Bam side, which are the exciting ones to look at because they can just pull off nut stuff like this, and I'm hoping it's going to propel them onto more.
Yeah, and Breezy especially has shown that he is a LAN winner. He's capable on LAN, and he's capable at a relatively high level. He was a really, really big element of XL or the Snoozer side back when they were competing together. Ever since that team broke up, it kind of feels like he's been set back by a bit, but his talent level has stayed the same. This is the second LAN victory he's gotten, and also in the last couple of months as well. Like the last one he got was just about a month ago. Actually, a month ago to the day as we're recording this episode, because he won Insomnia 64. I was there in the grand finals, and his team didn't lose a single game over the course of the entire playoff bracket. Like, Breezy's just been a fucking balling out of control player. Like, I can see him being a good RLRS, possibly lower level RLCS pickup. Like, he's really, really good. Like, Virtuoso's been a great underrated player, but Breezy himself, he is the real fucking deal. Like, if he's not part of the next Elite Series, or if he's not part of the next RLRS at the very, very least, I will be damned. I will be damned to hell if that was the case. And that's frustrating as well, because again, he could have been a really, really big player with XL if that team didn't break up after XL dropped them. And that team was on a rise. He was on a rise. He's still got the work. He's still got the talent. I can see it happening. I really want to see Breezy in a top-level team at some point. Yeah,
and again, for me, the way that would get sparked any sooner anyway, would be if there's a new Gfinity Elite season, and that's probably not going to happen right now.
Excuse me,
very
what?
Much done and dusted.
No more Elite Series? Are you serious?
Yeah, that's what it's all hinting to. Essentially.
I mean, I know it's been quiet about the Elite Series, but I never heard anything about it being completely cancelled.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying it's cancelled, but it just seems it's highly unlikely that it's going to happen again. The whole Gfinity seems to just moved on to being a production company.
Oh no, that's like big fucking setback for Rocket League, and especially in the EU circuit. Like, we needed the Gfinity Elite Series. Oh fuck, man.
At the same sense though, Rocket League for Gfinity is always a massive hindrance, purely because Sonics didn't want it running at a time which would have been suitable. Who the fuck wants to be up at 10 o'clock in the morning to watch Rocket League? No one. It was finished by 1 in the afternoon most of the time. And so it was just hurt because they couldn't run it at a later time, like in the evening or whatever, because that would clash with RLCS. There could have been a lot more done with that, but just bad decisions being made. But anyway, we might have to
do some digging about this. I don't want to believe the Gfinity are gone. Like, no fucking way they'll lose the Elite Series. Like, surely they can't do that. They can't fucking do that. They can't fucking do that. Again, I'll do some digging. I'll see what's going on with that. Because I have heard, because I've got my own reasons for thinking that will be the different case, but we'll talk about that in another episode because we are running short on time. There is a hard out for me, so let's get over to the Dreamhack Valencia Qualifiers, which of course went down this weekend in the European region. We had our open and our closed qualifiers. The results are Renault Vitality and FC Barcelona making it in via the qualification, and a pretty expected result. I'm not going to lie. If you didn't think they were going to make it in, then, maybe you would have had an upset run in the mind. But these are two of the best teams in Europe right now. They certainly were expecting to go and smash it out the park. But in general, a trend that I sort of observed with the RLCS teams, particularly those that didn't make it to the LAN event, or actually, no, sorry, scratch that, particularly just the top two in general, is that they kind of had a really underperforming day. There's some teams that it's understandable considering their circumstances, but there are other squads like Triple Trouble that just didn't have a fucking, just not showing up, or Team Solo Mid who were just not showing up in certain cases, or who else was in there? I'm trying to see if I can bring up the fucking link because my Chrome is not allowing me to zoom in on the show document. So fan-fucking-tastic. Thank you very much, Chrome, for being not only a massive RAM hog, but also just a massive inconvenience to use in general. PSG made it to finals, so they're all right. Dignitas is one of those teams I class as having reasons for it. But in general, the RLCS guys, They just fucking, again, I think it loops back into our conversation about them not taking it too seriously because, this is a trend we're seeing now in the open and closed qualifiers. They don't show up. They don't show up at all.
I mean, again, I don't want to bag on with mouse sports because that's just become sort of like a lost cause from a lot of sense because throughout the whole of
We've got that coming up.
Yeah, mouse sports are only able to get one game out of it. But again, a big props, I'm going to say, to Team GB coming through on Sunday because I keep thinking that it's, Monday still because of our old recording date, Jay. But Flux, Chippy, and Nolly did really good coming from. Of course, Xenomoon breaking up, so Nolly's now playing with Flux and Chippy here. Flux and Chippy, we've said for a while since the old Renegade Cup days that this could be a good power duo. They got Nolly, and they did fantastic, going to Game 5 with Vitality, and then unfortunately getting dropped down to the lower bracket, but they went on a 3-0, and then got dropped in Game 5 against Complexity. So for a bubble team, that is a nice starting performance since it was their first competition together. Complexity having a solid day, of course, taking down them. Aeriality, like I said, taking down Dignitas for me is the big improvement there. Aeriality also took down Triple Trouble, which was nuts. Bricks having a good day, taking down Veloce, Solo Mid, and Method. So that revitalizes my sort of mindset on the Bricks, and hopefully that will be a good one coming up to the promotion relegation tournament this coming weekend, I do believe, Jay. And then, of course, that's pretty much everything of note, because otherwise PSG have played as expected. Barca and Vitality, who we'd expect to get the two spots, got them. Actually, Yeet. I don't know. I haven't looked at your sheet, Jay. Have you picked out Yeet? No, you have not.
I didn't pick out Yeet. Honestly, yeah, I didn't have a whole lot of faith in this one. Pondex, Maestro, Ocelon. Okay, Ocelon finding a new home with those two ties, but at the end of the day, they kind of performed about as well as we expected them to. They beat out Dignitas, lost to PSG.
I think they should have done. They beat Dignitas 3-1, lost to PSG in Game 5. Of course, they send them to Game number 5 there, and then unfortunately losing out to TSM. But still taking down Dignitas and then going to Game 5 with PSG. For me, I thought this was a damned roster, and it shows it could work. They just need to change some things about. It's not over for Yeet. The old Vikings roster could come back maybe next season. They've still got something to work on, but I'm loving that there is signs of life to it,
Well, I mean, for me, the way I see it is that they beat Dignitas, and considering who they lost out to in the end, that's kind of a bit of a, it was an upset victory at the time, but it isn't expected looking back in hindsight, and then they lost to the two RLCS teams who, you should expect them to lose to. PSG being a fucking baller side, and TSM not being as baller, but still being in the RLCS, so Yeet, close series, fair enough, but I still don't have a lot of faith in this one. They were a bit of a mix thrown together. I'm not sure if they stick together. I'm not sure what's going to be happening. They kind of were just another drop in the ocean when it comes to the teams that came in and also went out at the same time. To me, I didn't feel like they did anything special. I don't think they did anything fantastic. They had the close series was a close series, but I'm not sure if they can replicate the PSG thing again. I think that the Dignitas result was again expected considering what we now know. Even then, I think the results were 1-0s all the way through. So Yeet barely scraped past Dignitas in their matches. So yeah, they're one of the teams I wanted to highlight. I mean, if they crop up again, then we'll bring it to the fold. But I do want to go in more detail with some of the bigger squads and some of the other teams that I had rostered down. Also, by the way, fuck you for basically summing up 8 different separate talking points in about a few sentences, for fuck's sake. Everything was expected. Yeah, reality, good, triple trouble shit. Dignitas for a bit fucking on shaky and everything. It's like, fuck me. Come on, dude. Let's talk about the 2 teams that won it. Renault Vitality and FC Barcelona. Expected. They are just so fucking good right now. They are so good. And Renault Vitality are also great at their own right. I do think that they've got some problems with dealing with PSG. Obviously, they haven't been able to lose a series to PSG in the last few times they've met, but this side has just been looking, incredible against everybody else. They didn't lose to Veloce once. They had a bit of a close run against GB, which, we've already mentioned that a little moment ago. But they also beat FCB 3-1, and they just dominated everybody else that they saw. It was a simple affair for Renault Vitality.
I look at that and go, yeah, they've got a little bit of a problem with PSG, but they always beat PSG. For me, it's still, I said it before, this worry that Barca, every single time they face up against Vitality, Barca are getting closer and closer to beating them. You look at this series, sure, it was a 3-1, but that last game went to overtime. Game 2 was a 1-goal differential. It was actually pretty darn close. It was just that game 1 where Vitality came out the gates, which really gave them that little bit of oomph to take the series. Barca, by the time we get around to LAN, I am still going to say it. My prediction at the start was that Vitality was going to win LAN. I may have to jump ship at some point because it does look like Barca is closing in on the ability to knock them out.
Well, we'll see whether they can do that. Obviously, at the LAN. No, I don't think they're the only team. PSG could do it. Look how many close results PSG have had against Renault Vitality. Again, they are a really formidable side, a very underrated side in my opinion. They've had, they've had a good season. They've had a good run.
But
obviously,
not at LAN. Jay, that's the problem.
That's the only thing. That's
Online,
the only thing.
yes.
Right.
At LAN, no.
At LAN, I hope that they've taken our advice and actually done something with their time together and tried to work on that LAN performance. Yes, I'm hoping that's the case. We haven't seen it just yet, but based off what we've seen from PSG versus Renault Vitality, I think that they've got the workings to be able to pull an upset victory against them. They will certainly be underdogs. But PSG, they've just been so good. I mean, we could kind of segue into that point right now in how they've been amazing. They've been the only teams they lost to was Renault Vitality and FC Barcelona. Renault Vitality on their run into the grand finals of the upper bracket, and then against FC Barcelona at the very last hurdle to qualify. And considering both of these 2 teams will probably be at Dallas, they'll probably get a decent shout at taking one of the top 4 spots. You must imagine that PSG are shoo-in to get their opportunity at Valencia, even if they have to pay their way through. I mean, they had a very good series against Complexity, beat the Bricks pretty easily. Their runs against Yeet was a bit of a close affair, but they've stomped Sogeti Esports obviously out of the first round. And PSG, they've just been good. They've just been consistently really, really good over the course of this bracket and over the course of the season and all the rest of the online circuit as a whole. Again, the problem still is, can they make a good run at LAN? And considering how few times we've seen them at LAN, we don't really know if that's going to be the case. But I do think that based off their recent performance, and especially against Renault Vitality, they have the opportunity, they have the chance to beat them. I think that they're the closest team to be able to do it. Not FCB. FCB are great. They are improving, but I think the PSG are the ones that they are the kryptonite. They are the kryptonite.
No, I say we agree to disagree on this one, bud. But
we might have to.
Because I'd still
we'll
see...
see this weekend.
PSG are grown. You're very right. PSG are grown, and with Dallas, we'll see and we'll get a good judgment, but I don't think they can grow in time. By next season, however, they could, because they are just so strong. They're pretty darn consistent, which is blooming ace. Cannot hold anything against PSG. It is just at the moment, the 2 teams they just can't beat. They're getting close, but they just can't beat is both Barca and Vitality.
Now let's move on to Air Reality. I think for the next topic we want to talk about. We had some concerns about this roster coming into this bracket and into this qualifier because obviously they just lost Aztral. Aztral being the standout performer for Air Reality, and honestly, I believe that they were going to crash and burn. I thought they were going to, go out to triple trouble and immediately drop into who are they going to face? Getafe. I thought they would have been able to take on Getafe, but probably would have lost to TSM in that thread. I believe that's how it was going to go for Air Reality. I just thought this is a no contest for me. Unfortunately, they've lost a really big element. But no, I mean, Ixo suddenly stepped up and filled the shoes of the likes of Aztral, and him and Tylacto, like, those guys are a wombo combo dream team. Like, the amount of passing plays they fed between each other right now, like, they look so good together. They look so good together.
Blurry as well, actually.
Oh, no, I'm bringing up Blurry. I'm about to bring up Blurry as well. I'm just saying that those two as a duo, like, they work surprisingly well together. I think it was overshadowed by Aztral last time, but this time it was the thing that took center stage. Blurry was a great supporting element, though. Like, his dribbles up, his clears out towards the other end of the field that gave Air Reality some decent opportunities. And obviously, he scored some absolute banger double touches over the course of the broadcast that we were able to cover. We were fortunate enough to cover because Air Reality, they made another great run. It wasn't quite as good as last time, but this is a side that if they stick together, I believe they might be RLRS level, to be honest.
If they stay at this rate, playing at this level, then yeah, next season they're going to be RLRS and probably contest them for top 4 quite easily, I'd argue. My only problem, which I'm going to say is not a problem at the same time, it's a weird one, is that Tylacto doesn't have the same mechanical skill as the others. However, he makes up for that with the mental. You can see he's definitely conducting that team, and that is something we don't see from any of the other teams at the moment, where you've got one player probably captaining at a much higher level and is just keeping everything so informed. I think that is a major strength to why this team is doing so well at the moment.
Yeah, and I think if he transitions into being more of like an in-game leader or supportive element, again, if he passes to Ixo, sets up Ixo for some of the most banging goals in the world, then we're looking at a team that may be seriously formidable. Again, the one thing that stood out to me the most this weekend was the way that Tylacto and Ixo played together. They were so good as a duo, and that is the key thing. They were good together. Tylacto, I think you could put him into a roster, and he can support the star players and build them up to set them up to be the stars essentially of that team. And for Air Reality, obviously he's the man that leads the charge. Let's see him do some more of that. Honestly, I think that's the one thing I'd push. That's the direction I push Air Reality down. Like Blurry himself, I didn't know what to make of him. I didn't really know, what we would expect coming into the matches that we covered of Air Reality. But when he was going, man, oh man, he was going as well. Like Air Reality are really onto something with this team, I think.
Yeah, definitely this is a squad which could go far, and we're hoping it just keeps on going for them. I would actually love to see them pay their own ticket to get to Valencia, because again, like we were saying with the whole ecosystem, do like a little bit of a Veloce. So essentially go to Valencia, but under an org. So you're playing under an org, and all you're not getting paid anything, but you're getting the tickets free. Essentially, that's your pay to go. But that could really spark them to get the experience they need, especially youngsters, because of course Tylacto does quite a lot of LAN stuff. If I remember, I even saw him at NSE. So get them really experienced there, because that's going to be the best way for them to grow as players and then get into the RLRS, which is essentially their dream at the moment, which will then span them onto the RLCS down the line, as we can see from definitely Ixo. I see big things in that lad's future.
Yeah, Ixo and Breezy are the two guys from the UK that stand out the most, in my opinion. Like those guys, they are the UK's next rising stars, and I'm excited to see what they can do if they can stick to their respective rosters and do some really good stuff. A team that didn't do some good stuff this weekend, though, unfortunately, was Triple Trouble. Now, we gave them a lot of praise a moment ago. We were saying, yes, they have the potential to be able to make these runs in the qualifiers, but this was the exception to the rule. They did not do well. Admittedly, yes, they were against Air Reality in their first round, which, of course, we know exactly what Air Reality could do, obviously eliminating Dignitas later on down in the bracket, and also taking against Method. I think there were pretty close games in that particular matchup. All within one goal, in fact one overtime. most of them within 1 goal with the Method victories, and RLCS taking a 2-goal victory above Method. So yeah, very, very close from them. But Triple Trouble fell to RLCS early on in the bracket. Then they found stuff against Getafe, and this was a result that I think is unacceptable. Like, Triple Trouble should have won this. They should have won this so easily. Getafe, I like the Getafe guys. I think they are among sort of like that contention for top 2, or the second or third in the Spanish region. But they had Mexa standing in for this tournament, which
Mex is now full roster.
Oh, is he part of the full roster now? Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen what he can do. I haven't heard of him prior to this point, so I don't really know if he's
Damn.
Yeah,
I like Mexa. He's an up and comer. I wouldn't say like you definitely wouldn't have heard him on the same level as like Breezy, Blurry, or Ixo.
That's probably why.
But I think he will be one which we could start hearing a lot more a year from now. You know.
Potentially, but in terms of this roster as a whole, like Getafe, they just recently made this change. And against Triple Trouble, the RLCS caliber, Getafe is still a bubble scene team. And obviously that goes to show immediately in the next round. Yeah, and then it immediately goes to show where in the next round they got destroyed by TSM. 6-3, 4-0, and 3-0 were the scores of those games. So TSM had no trouble with them. So what happened to Triple Trouble here is something that I may never know because we don't have the demos, unfortunately. But yeah, like this...
They even get on stream, I think, as well.
No,
I don't think TSM even got on stream with that rate, which is just a massive yikes, essentially. Like, they're a team that should be finishing up at I'm going to argue, the point where Method and Complexity dropped out, loses round 5, where essentially they're into top 6 or 8. Triple Trouble at the moment is essentially... That's the one-off. Done, dusted. We saw it from Barcelona with the Leipzig qualifiers, I'm pretty sure, where they did a very similar thing. I think even at that same point of the bracket, coming in with the same seed and that, and they just went out in 2 games. This isn't going to be a big problem in the long run for Triple Trouble. It's just a blip on the map, but it's one at that level, especially when they're looking for an org. They cannot risk. They can't do that, because every loss like that is going against them. If they make big, consistent runs through tournaments, that's more appealing to an org.
Yeah, and especially when you consider where they stand right now in terms of the rankings and in terms of how you'd weigh up a lot of the teams in the in the Rocket League scene, it's like, well, they're not making it to these big lands because they are losing out in these qualifiers and they can't get an organization or they can't go to the land because they're not on an organization. So this will hurt them. This is going to hurt them big time over, as obviously they're going to miss out on the Valencia. I mean, they might be able to go and go ahead and buy a ticket. Like, Valencia isn't that expensive to get to. I say that I haven't looked at my plane tickets yet, so I'm not going to fucking, preach that as gospel.
You need to do that.
Yeah, I need to get that sorted. I also need to get crafters to get the Airbnb. Did you know also, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that we're going to be at Valencia, so you should definitely also come down.
Crafters already paid for the Airbnb, dude.
Yeah, I need to pay for my share, though. I need to pay for my share. I'm still waiting on 2 paychecks to come in from a couple of events. I'm not going to say which ones, but a couple of... You can probably make a guess as to what they are. But yeah, no, like again for TSM, for Triple Trouble, excuse me, this is going to hurt them big time. The fact that they didn't make it through this time, the fact that they went out so early as well, because like at least if you see them up in the later portions of the bracket, it's like, okay, yeah, well, this is expected. It's unfortunate that they drew against PSG, for example, in the losers round 6, the losers finals. It's like, yeah, that sucks big time, but at the same time, they're still a formidable side to make it as far as they did and also go close against PSG. But this didn't happen at all, and that's like the second time in a row that Triple Trouble have choked in a Dreamhack qualifier.
Yeah, and again, I expect it to just not be a problem for very long. I'm still amazed by it, because if they had dropped to TSM after that drop from RLCS, I would have been absolutely fine, Jay. Like, that wouldn't have been too bad because RLCS just had a really good day. The same with Method. Method had a very good day as well. But there to Getafe, that is the one which we do not like at all, because that is, like we said, a lower end bubble team. That should be a 3-0. And even a 3-1, I'd have been a little bit, okay, Triple Trouble losing the game. How did that look into the results and all of that? Oh, that was just a mistake. Okay, we're fine. But no, losing in game 5 those lads are probably going to be a bit scared of that, and I'm hoping it's not going to hurt their mental.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, this is, again, it's going to hurt Triple Trouble in the grand scale of Rocket League Esports, so that's the most that we can say about it. So let's move on to Dignitas, another team that have been seriously hurt by this this qualifier run. My God, like, how far from grace do you have to fall, guys? Like, fuck me, not making land this time, and then losing out to Yeet, and then, you know, losing out to Aeriality, who, yes, that was a pretty legitimate result, but even then, barely scraping together against the likes of Monarchy, and having a close game against, barely scraping by against Wholesome Homies, and then, you know, having some close games against Monarchy. Like, guys, what has this team become? You know, like this was a team that we looked at the core of them. We were like, this is one of the best teams we've ever had grace the game, and now they're a shell of their former selves. They're here for the Dignitas side. Like, this is, I don't know where they go from here. I really don't know what they can do. Like, maybe they could pick up Aztral and that might work out, but, you know, even then, with Yukio being on the side, I don't want to see him get left out. I don't really think that a roster move is what they need to do right now. They are just in a ridiculous slump at the moment.
For me, we'll see it again at LAN, because they always have player cams and that, of course, want to pick up biggest teams. But this team is just getting frustrated with each other. I've said it in passing, get them in a player house, you know, get some team building going. If they're not going to do that, yeah, a player swap is going to come out, and it's going to sound like heresy from this side, but I reckon it's got to be Turbo Pulsar. That's got to be changed.
Well, that is fucking heresy. You're right about that.
He's the best player on the team, but he is the one to easily tilt, and you can't have that. Dignitas are at the point where they look like next season they could go down if this keeps going, because it is a downward spiral, and you got to think of it as a team sort of health scenario, you know. So if they can get, like, the one that's tilting, getting frustrated the most, get rid of him, you can try and get in some good vibes to the team.
But do you really think the Violent Panda would separate from Turbo Pulsar, though? Like, that's like a dream team duo, and we saw how those dream team duos have affected certain teams in the past. You know, take a look at Complexity, for example, and when they split up Mogus and Metza, that was a big mistake on their part. Like, it might do more damage to Dignitas than it could do good, you know? And it's like, again, I don't think a roster move is the appropriate thing right now. You have to work on that tilt factor for Turbo. Like, you know, he's such a good player, man. He is one of the best that's ever touched Rocket League. You know, 3-time world champion. No one has ever done that before. So when you're seeing situations like this right now, where he is leading a team that's not doing as well as those results kind of indicate, and you know something's got to change in terms of the mentality game, because I think that this roster can do some good things. They already have done some great things, you know. They won Leipzig together. So
that's my point. If they don't change the mental aspect, they don't work on that, then it's got to be a player swap.
I am in agreement with you.
I hope that it is the mental aspect, and as I said, team house over the summer period. Get them in team house after RLCS LAN. It would probably have to be. Get them there. And,
I mean, with that, I'm not really sure a team house would work. It might, maybe a boot camp prior to a LAN, like for a couple of weeks, might be able to help. But like a team house, having them live together, like that might cause even more problems if Turbo's getting frustrated at his teammates. You know, like I'm not sure that would be a Dignitas that lasts. I mean, I have my own reservations about team houses as it stands, but I digress. Yeah, like, yeah,
as I'm saying, it's like a team house for like a 2-3 month period. So it's just a long boot camp, essentially. Like I said, over the summer for them to work on the stuff, and then after that, go back to normal life, because it is the teamwork needs to be fixed, because at the moment is near enough non-existent. You look at all their plays, and essentially they're playing solos. They're doing solo standard, and that don't work in Rocket League.
Well, regardless, the point is that there's something needs to change for this roster really badly, because this is a team that we've looked at, and they have just been amazing in the past, but the past is the past, and the present right now does not show anything of that team that we used to know. So let's move on to Methods. Yeah, we talked about them a little bit earlier, saying, you know, that they had a good day, a good day out with Aztral, and yeah, I can agree with that to a certain extent, but it's only a slight increment of improvement. You know, I feel like Methods still have struggles with the Rix Burrito combo. You know, I think that's something that, again, they need to try and work on that duo, because Like, it's the one thing that's holding him back. Astral's being an amazing player. He's just destroying everything that comes in his path. I don't think the Ricks and Burrito are doing that talent justice.
I'm expecting that to improve by the time we get to Dallas LAN in... Oh, God, that's only 2 weeks away. Purely because it felt almost with Ocelon, it was a lack of trust in him, so they would double commit him with him. Here, now they're starting to see they can trust Aztral with a lot of plays because he's a strong enough player and he'll do a lot of solo plays. So that should be something that works itself out with a little bit of time. Remember, this was their first tournament with Aztral, so by the second one, they've had a bit of time together. It should be okay.
Should be is the thing there. I'm not sure if it will be okay.
It's too soon to make the judgment.
We'll have to find out. Again, it would be nice if we saw Method in the Elite Series, but we've already made comments about that and some sort of intimations about how that might go down. But the fun talking point I want to talk about is Mouse Sports. We've seen a lot of potential come from Mouse Sports on this season, but I think they're done. I think this is over. Like, this was the worst performance out of the entire bracket, like, by far and a fucking way. Mouse Sports won a single game, not a single series, a single game, and the only series that they won was a forfeit victory against the Intellectuals in the lower bracket. Then they got destroyed by Team GB. Like, come the fuck on. This is over. It's done. GG. Like, that's it. We're over. Like, Mouse Sports, it's done. Like, there's no fucking chance. There is no way they're getting through the promotion playoffs. They're going to be destroyed by Veloce and destroyed by the Bricks of Complexity. Whoever makes it into that losers round one, it's over. Like, I'm sorry. I do appreciate the Alex Tigray combo. I did see a lot of potential in it. And I saw a lot taking the reins of this team and really driving home what's the fucking name of it? The whole, like, striking element, the offensive style of aggression. And he was doing a good job of it, but it's not enough. Mouse Sports, it's not working. It's not working at all.
Yeah, and when we've got this coming Sunday, the promotion playoffs, Mouse Sports go up against Veloce first, and we've already seen the result of that. Rocket Baguette covered it over the weekend, the Veloce versus Mouse from the Dreamhack Qualifiers, and just Mouse got just absolutely dismantled. First game, went pretty okay. Veloce was slow to start at the start of the day. It was a 1-0 in overtime to Mouse, and then Veloce went in 1-0, 2-1, 2-0, then 2-1. And that was Veloce almost with a really bad start to the day. And it was a bad day for Veloce, yet they were still able to take out Mouse, which just seemed not even there. It shows when you got Mouse playing almost what seemed to be normal, and you got Veloce limited, where they just do not seem to be able to have a good day at office, and they still win Veloce. I do not have any hopes coming into this tournament for Mouse. I'm hoping they can make it through, because of course I hope that from every single team. I've got no biased favourites, but I just don't see it happening. Coming out from this is going to be Veloce, I reckon, and then either the better of the two between Complexity and Bricks.
Yeah, like, again, there's no fucking chance. It's over. It is over for Mouse Sports. Like, I just don't see a way that they can make it happen.
They've got one season RLRS to near enough pull up their socks and then hopefully come back. But as we know, it is so cutthroat within Rocket League at the moment. They've got to make top two in what will be like RLRS level gets harder and harder each season. It's not those days of, can you remember Fnatic, where they're on the borderline and just able to easily 7-0 make their way back? You're not going to have that again, Mouse. They have got to change something. As I've already said, I reckon you're going to see probably a player swap because they're that way inclined. We've seen it in the past. And if that fixes them, all jolly well and good. But if not, they're going to be knocked out of RLRS, and Mouse is going to be out of Rocket League.
Most likely, and especially it's not even that far gone of a conclusion as well. When we take a look at the RLRS and the teams we already have confirmed for the RLRS, like ARG and Method. ARG are insane. They're looking for an organization right now. Like, Mouse Sports might even be better jumping ship and picking them up instead. Like, like that's the kind of level we're talking about here with the current Mouse Sports lineup. Anyway, taking a look at some of the teams that have come forward. Obviously, GB had a good run. That's a bit of potential. Aeriality, we say, have some opportunities to make their way into the RLRS if they keep their form up. We're also taking a look at the Bricks, who might be relegated as well. And if it comes down to Bricks versus Mousesports, I'm picking Bricks every single day. And then we've got the guys that we talked about a little bit earlier in Breezy, who's a really good talent who could get picked up by a team, who could get moved into an RLRS roster, who might even form his own squad and make a run to the RLRS. The thousands and thousands of bubble team teams who could also, make some dark horse opportunities. Like, there's so many squads and so much talent that Mousesports have to contend with. And that's the reason why I say they're done. I just can't see it happening. But the way that they're playing right now, they've got to pull up their socks, kick themselves up the arses, or just be gone. And honestly, with the way that the season's gone, with the way that this qualifier went, with the continuing disappointment from this squad, it's not happening. I'm just not convinced at all, Bacon.
Yeah, and it's a case of one more season is what I expect out of the contracts, since a lot only moved on to Mouse last season. I expect it to be lasting over for another season up until the end of 2019, and then they'll either drop out or they'll go and pick up another RLCS team if Mouse likes Rocket League and wants to stay within it. But for these guys, they've got to make it worth their while. Mouse won't want to stay with an RLRS team in the current climate of Rocket League. They'll want an RLCS team if they stay in. So even if Mouse stay in RLRS next season, if they can stay in top 4, I would still probably say they'll get dropped. Very much like what Fnatic did to the Vikings.
Yeah, and what more do you say to that, obviously? That's going to round it out for the Dreamhack Valencia, closed qualifiers. Of course, your top teams making it through Ronaky, Vitality, and FC Barcelona. They will be joined by, from the North American side, the Peeps and NRG Esports, plus one team from the Dream Cup, which is coming up also this weekend. We won't be covering that, I don't think. I mean, we might do, depending on the circumstances. I mean, it's not really a fantastic tournament, in my opinion. Like, only 2 teams will be playing in what is essentially a show match for that one. But also, they'll be taking on the top 4 teams from Dreamhack Dallas, who will all be in attendance to this particular LAN event. So keep your eyes out on that one. And Dreamhack Dallas will be very exciting to watch in 2 weeks' time. But for the upcoming week, we have the promotion playoffs, Bacon. Again, we talked about it a little bit with Mousesports. The Bricks joining them and Veloce and Complexity in a 4-team double elimination bracket to see who's making it through to the RLCS next season and who will be relegated to RLRS all the same. I mean, before we just end off the show, is there any particular predictions with that tournament? I mean, we obviously no faith in Mousesports, but out of the other 3 squads, who do you think could possibly be making it to LAN?
Veloce is probably the best looking team out of a lot. And then from this weekend just gone, Bricks brought me a lot of hope. You look at where Bricks ended out in the losers round 6, losing the PSG, showing they've still got that capability. They 3-0'd Method. They 3-2'd Solo Mid. They even 3-2'd Veloce. And so for me, I reckon it's going to be Veloce, Bricks. But I want Complexity to stay within Rocket League, that sort of deal. But I want Cooksy to stay in RLCS. It's going to be, Veloce and one of the other 2. We'll have to find out. Even then, it could just be Bricks and Complexity. It's a crazy old time. It's so hard to predict when it comes around to these promotion playoffs sometimes because these teams are nuts.
I mean, this promotion playoff is the reason why I wish we saw the Bricks and Complexity in losers round 6 of that match, of that bracket, because it could have happened, and that could have been a big preview to give us some sort of insight into how this is going to go. But I have to agree. I think Veloce and the Bricks are the most likely odds to win. Complexity are pulling in a very close second place, though. I think that they possibly, if they do face against the Bricks in the losers finals, which is pretty likely, then they might be able to make a secondary opportunity, or they might be able to open up a second opportunity to, beat them out and, of course, qualify.
Veloce's just got the upper hand because they've got Mouse first, basically, and that puts them into the winners'
finals. Well, even
finals.
then, they've had a stellar season anyway, so, you can't take it away from how good they are. Like, they are insane, and I have a feeling that they've got to make it in anyway, no matter who they face. They're probably going to be able to, 2 matches and win it easy. That's probably going to be... That's my prediction, honestly. I think that Veloce are just going to deck Mouse Sports and deck whoever they face next. Like, they're good. They are really, really good. So we'll leave it as that as we end off another episode of RL Aftershock. Bacon, has been a fun one today. A bit of a depression-filled one, I think. Honestly, we've covered a lot of like negative topics. Like, we've just been talking about Dignitas is shit, Mouse Sports is shit, Triple Trouble lost the plot, Tylacto's in drama, Aztral's in drama, Ronaky can't get a fucking organization, and players aren't taking these things. It's been a really fucking depressing episode. I do apologise to everyone at home who's who didn't enjoy that, but we did, so we're going to publish it anyway. And we'll be back next week with even more of the RL Aftershock action, again covering those promotion playoffs, and of course the week after that covering the Dreamhack Dallas LAN. So make sure you tune in for that all the same at the same time in the same place. Hopefully with a live show coming up as well, Bacon. And fingers crossed on that one. We'll be working on that to hopefully bring that back. Of course, so follow the Twitch channel at twitch.tv/RLAftershock, and of course the Twitter at RLAftershock. And you can also subscribe to the audio podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, the video version on YouTube, and most other major platform distribution services. You can go to anchor.fm/RLAftershock to find your favourite platform or request your favourite way to listen. Bacon, any final words before we hand off for another week?
Not really, just that I am going to just have to go cheer myself up. I think I'll go finish off Shovel Knight. That's a good game so far. I'm
going to go finish off A Hat in Time, actually. I've been playing that DLC recently. You should fucking play that game, by the way. If you're listening right now and you enjoy like Super Mario Collectathons, like Mario Odyssey or Mario, 64, go play A Hat in Time. It is amazing. It is fucking amazing. There's 2 DLCs out for it, so you're not short of content. Go play that fucking game right now. Okay, we're going to go off. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you back here next week for even more of the Aftershock.